Hello everyone, and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. Just a quick heads up that I've been invited to speak at the Majesty of the Faith Conference in Chicago this coming Saturday. It's an all-day affair that should prove to be quite a lot of fun and very motivating. We've attached a link with all the details right over here. That's this coming Saturday in Chicago. And now if you're watching on YouTube, just go to realcatholictv.com, like it says right down here, and click on the link on our homepage. In the run-up to Easter last week in Rome, Pope Benedict seemed deeply distressed over the state of the world. He spoke freely about sin, unbelief, a dramatic loss of faith among Christians, and he spoke about Satan. When you look at the combined comments that came in his weekly audience on Wednesday, the Chrism Mass on Holy Thursday, and the Mass of the Lord's Supper on Holy Thursday night, a sobering, serious picture emerges. His comments were not without hope, certainly, but only the lamest of intellects could walk away from them without a sense of deep concern. On Wednesday, at his general audience, he said with regard to evil, what exists in humans, quote, is a certain insensitivity of soul to the power of evil, an insensitivity to all the evil of the world. We do not want to let ourselves be too disturbed by these things. We want to forget them. We think that perhaps it is not so grave, and so we forget. That was Wednesday last week at noon. Then on Thursday morning at the Mass of Chrism, in a broadside attack against the dictatorship or tyranny of relativism, he said this, quote, "Have not we, the people of God, become to a large extent a people of unbelief and distance from God? Is it perhaps the case that the West, the heartlands of Christianity, are tired of the faith, bored by their history and culture, and no longer wish to know faith in Jesus Christ?" End quote. It's important to note here that he is speaking directly to Catholics who possess no fire for the faith, if indeed they have any faith left at all. He warned that civilization, Catholic civilization, is what has bound together the people of Europe, and that their abandonment of the truth will end in their annihilation as a people. He pleaded, quote, "We have reason to cry out at this time to God, do not allow us to become a non-people. Make us recognize you again." Then, a few hours later, at the Mass of the Lord's Supper on Holy Thursday evening, he again pointed to the deficiencies of contemporary man. Quote, "But what about ourselves? Do we really desire him? Are we anxious to meet him? Do we desire to encounter him, to become one with him, to receive the gifts he offers us in the Holy Eucharist? Or are we indifferent, distracted, busy about other things?" End quote. A short while later, he said, "Today we are once more painfully aware that Satan has been permitted to sift the disciples before the whole world." End quote. What's being established here is a review of the world stage. Evil is rampant because it is not recognized. The soul does not recognize it because modern man has lost or become indifferent to faith. Man has become indifferent to faith because too many have become nonchalant about the Eucharist, and that would be too many Catholics. This indifference to the Eucharistic Lord among the very people called to bring him to the world has resulted in a satanic sifting like wheat of the clergy. He stresses the great need for a return to the Eucharist, to a solid belief in the real presence of our blessed Lord. Quote, "Jesus also knew about guests who come to the banquet without being robed in the wedding garment. They come not to rejoice in his presence, but merely out of habit, since their hearts are elsewhere." In one of his homilies, St. Gregory the Great asks, "Who are these people who enter without the wedding garment? What is this garment, and how does one acquire it?" He replies that those who are invited and enter do in some way have faith. It is faith which opens the door to them, but they lack the wedding garment of love. Those who do not live their faith as love are not ready for the banquet and are cast out. Eucharistic communion requires faith, but faith requires love. Otherwise, even as faith, it is dead. End quote. And to come full circle, when faith dies, civilizations die. No matter how you slice it or dice it, this Pope is betting the farm on restoring a sense of the sacred. He's taken definitive steps to restore a clear, unambiguous understanding of the Mass as the sacrifice of Calvary by setting the stage for the traditional Latin Mass to begin to flourish again. And it's not that the representation of the sacrifice of Calvary is not present in the Novus Ordo Masses. It's just that so many priests and bishops have allowed such abuses to accrue to the Mass that's most common in most parishes throughout the world that it is hard for the faithful to have that sense of sacrifice, and therefore they lose faith in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Now, we've attached links to all three of the Holy Father's Holy Week addresses for you to read for yourself. They're right over here. We highly suggest you take the few minutes and read them for yourselves and reflect on them. The world is in a serious crisis of sin and coming carnage because Catholics have not and do not believe as they should. So many lack faith, real burning faith, because they lack love of Christ in the Eucharist. Our blessed Lord said, quote, "When the Son of Man returns, will he find faith on earth?" Pope Benedict seems to be pointing to the same crisis of faith, and what has him so worried is the earlier prophecy of our Lord in the previous chapter of Luke, quote, "And as it came to pass in the days of Noah, so shall it also in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat and drink, they married wives, and were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, as it came to pass in the days of Lot, they did eat and drink, they bought and sold, they planted and built, and in the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man shall be revealed." What led to the destruction was a lack of faith. When the Holy Father looks out on the world today, he sees a world ripe for destruction. Recapture your faith, fellow Catholics. Recapture your faith. Rediscover who you are. God love you. I'm Michael Voris. And don't forget about the Majesty of the Faith Conference. The link for it is right over here. See you in Chicago on Saturday. God bless you.
Please help us keep delivering these kinds of messages that so desperately need to be heard and acted on. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber. Become immersed in the faith established by Jesus Christ. The Catholic Church is the only hope against evil because that is its God-given mission. As our Lord said, "Apart from me, you can do nothing." Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber and come to learn and love Christ more deeply.